Look, let's just go right back to the beginning here, because we're used to premature death rates falling over the decades. Why is that? I mean, that's very good news, obviously.
I think generally it's falling because we're a richer society. Everything's better. Nutrition is better, housing is better, living conditions are better, working conditions, everything's improved.
Right, so fewer accidents at work and all of that.
Yeah, all of that.
Right. One of the other things we haven't talked about yet, but is that this report tallies with some stuff you've said, which is that has flattened off over the last 5 years, so it's not falling anymore.
That's right. Our report was looking at older ages and said it had flattened. This is looking at premature mortality under age 75 and said it's flattened. And flattened in the north and the south.
Yeah, that affects everybody.
Affects
What could be
everybody.
driving that?
Well, we speculated that policies of austerity post-2010, decrease in adult social care spending, decrease in NHS expenditure per person could play a role, and we said it's urgent to investigate if indeed that is related to it.
Okay. Let's get to this north-south issue, because there's a long-standing gap. What is the best succinct summary of what drives this gap? Because it's at all ages, over the decades, there has been some percentage higher premature death in the north.
Well, I think we have some insight into it, because when we look at mortality according to where you are in the social hierarchy, what we find all over the country, that the lower you are in the social hierarchy, defined by education or jobs or deprivation, the higher the mortality. But the disadvantage of being low is bigger in the north than in the south. So somebody in the middle of the hierarchy has higher mortality than somebody at the top, but the excess is bigger in the north than the south. Somebody at the bottom, the excess is even bigger in the north.
So wait, so if you're a poor person in the south, equally poor to someone else in the north, you'll live longer in the south as that poor person than the person in the north.
You will, if you're a professional.
I don't understand. Why would that be? Because you've just said that the deprivation is driving a lot of this.
Because I think the 6 domains that I identified in my review are all worse in the north than they are in the south. We could look at child poverty, for example. Let's take the first one on early childhood. Child poverty is worse in the north than the south. We've also talked about the importance of Sure Start children's centres. They're funded by local government. The decrease in funding to local government is bigger. The decrease is bigger in the north than the south. So Sure Start children's centres are closing in great numbers.
Complicated point. Okay, but let me ask you also then about this issue, which goes back to the 90s. It's not forever, which is these younger middle-aged adults. So this is 25 to 45, where you've seen a really big gap. I mean, the rates have in fact improved or not got much worse, but much bigger gap. What's going on there?
Well, let's go back 10 years earlier, because what we saw in the 1980s, that the difference, say, for 25 to 34-year-olds between the north and south was almost not there, but it was rising. Mortality was rising both in north and south, particularly in men, in young men. And that was suicide, alcohol, violent deaths, the kind of disempowerment that we saw just now on your clip. But then what happened? In the mid-90s, things improved in the south. Mortality started to decline, and they didn't in the north. And my speculation is that that disempowerment related to social and economic conditions persisted in the north when things were getting better in the south.
In a word, that issue around drink or the death by despair is part of what's going on in that group.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.